Morning, grade sevens, and welcome to the lesson on subtraction of fractions. So, as the name suggests, obviously you're going to be taking fractions and subtracting them from one another. Okay, so let's get started. So, first of all, we need to make sure that we have the example given. So, in the textbook, and if you don't have a textbook, it's all good. I've got the textbook on the camera for you, so you don't have to worry about trying to open it up and getting it to the right page. Now, the reason why I want to show you what's in the textbook is because I give you two examples that you can use to subtract fractions. Now, you can choose which method you want. You can either choose method 1 or method 2, whichever one works better for you. So you need to make that choice. Just because your friend likes method 1 does not necessarily mean that you will be good at method 1. Maybe you are better at method 2 and then vice versa. So I'm going to go through both methods with you, and afterwards, like later on, you'll be able to start to see which one works better in your case. Okay, so maybe you are better at minusing smaller numbers, or maybe you are better with bigger numbers. It just depends. So keep an open mind, go through both of them, listen to what I have to say, and then you can make the final decision later on. Okay, so we're going to start with method 1, and I'm going to go through what's in the textbook, but I want to do it for you so that you can get an idea of what is actually going on. Okay, so we're going to write out the question. 4 and 1 over 6 minus 1 and 2 over 3. Now, what I like to do first, and this is just a personal thing, but it does seem to work better, is to get the whole numbers just together. So what I do is I'll take the 4 and the 1, and because we are subtracting, 4 minus 1 is obviously equal to 3. So we are going to subtract the whole numbers first. Okay, so that's what we're going to do first. We're going to subtract the whole numbers first. And that's what we have just done now. And now what I want you to do is to leave the rest alone. I don't want you to do anything yet. Okay, now what you've got is you've got 3 and 1 over 6 minus 2 over 3. Now what you can do is to change it to lowest common denominator, which just means that your bottom number of your fraction has to be the same. So I'm going to leave the 3. And I'm going to change both of my fractions. Now I can see that 6 is a common denominator for both because I know that 3 can go into 6. So what we do is we put 6 at the bottom for both of them. And now we need to change the numerators because remember our fractions have to still be the same value. I can't just change the bottom and do nothing with the top. I have to keep the value of the fraction the same. Now I've got 3 and 1 over 6. I didn't do anything to the 6, so I can leave this one alone. Okay, nothing happened. We kept the 6 there, there's a 6 there, so we keep the 1. Okay, but what did I do to the 3 to get to 6? And all I did was I times by 2, top and bottom. So I've got 2 times 2 and 3 times 2. So we can write our numerator as 4, and obviously I've already got my denominator as 6, and I got that from 3 times 2. Okay, so now we're looking at this and thinking, oh goodness, now what do we do? Okay, so this is where it gets a little bit hair-raising. Okay, and there's nothing to actually worry about. Now, what I want to do is I want to borrow from the 3. So like you would normally with your normal subtraction, so I'm sure you all remember your normal subtraction. Remember when you get a number that is too small at the top and you've got the big number at the bottom, and you need to try and subtract it. What you normally would do is borrow from the number on the left. And that's exactly what you're doing here. I need to borrow from the left, which means I need to borrow 1 from the 3. So I'm going to take 3 and I'm going to make it 2. And I'm going to add 1 to the 1 over 6. So what I like to do is I say, okay, I'm going to give 1. So 2 plus 1 is still 3. And I've got 1 over 6. And then we'll obviously go further later. And I leave the minus 4 over 6. Now what you can do is make this an improper fraction. So you've got 2 And you've got 6 times 1 is 6, plus 1 is 7 over 6, minus 4 over 6. Okay, and what starts to happen then is we've got two numbers or two fractions that have both got a 6 at the bottom. I can see this one is bigger than that one, and now I can subtract quite easily. So I'm going to have 2, 7 minus 4 is 3 over 6, and I'm done. But now some of you are going to say to me, no, that's not done yet, and you are 100% correct. We still need to simplify. So you have to simplify. You've got to make it the smallest you can. And what you do there is, in order to simplify, I'm just going to divide top and bottom by 3. And I'm going to get 2 and a half. Now, you don't have to show every little bit of working out like I am here. I'm showing it to you so that you know what I'm doing. So if you want to know where did the 4 over 6 come from, it's because I times by 2. If you want to find out where I got the half from, it's because I divided top and bottom by 3. Okay, so this is how you subtract using method number 1. This is the one where you minus the whole numbers, you turn it into a lowest common denominator, and then you minus accordingly. Okay, now if I go and do method number 2, and I'm just going to show you method number 2. Method number 2 is using an improper fraction. Okay, and you've got 4 and 1 over 6 minus 1 and 2 over 3 equals, okay, and what we're going to do is we're going to change them all to improper. So that is my first thing I'm going to do. Now some of you will like this method. Some of you might be like, I don't even want to know it. I don't like improper fractions, and that's fine. But let's just do it so you can get a feel as to whether you might want to use this method. Obviously some of you might not want to use it. Okay, but let's have a look anyway. So when we're changing to improper, we need to make it top heavy. So 6 times 4 is 24, plus 1 is 25. So you got 25 over 6, minus. And now we're going to do the same with this one. 3 times 1 is 3, plus 2 is 5 over 3. Okay, and that's what we are landing up with for this one. Okay, but now I can see that I can't do anything with it because I still have to change it to a lowest common denominator. So we need to make it the same denominator. And again, like in the previous one, we're going to use 6. Okay, and I'm going to leave the 25 because I haven't done anything to the 6, so we can leave 25 there. But I have done something to the 5 over 3 to get it over 6, and I have to times by 2. And then you're going to have 10. What you're going to be left with is 25 minus 10, and you're going to get 15 over 6. Now remember, when you're adding and subtracting your fractions, you only ever add and subtract the top number. You don't subtract the bottom number, okay? Because that is obviously like how much you've divided your parts by, okay? And the top number is how many parts there are. And if we're taking the number of parts minus the number of parts, we have to obviously minus the numerators and not the denominators. Okay, now we're left with this improper fraction still. We've still got it a bit top heavy. And at the end of the day, we need to simplify it. So what we're going to do is we're going to say 6 goes into 15 twice, and we've got 3 left over. Because 6 times 2 is 12, plus 3 is 15. That's how I know I'm correct. Okay, and then we're going to do the same, divide top and bottom by 3, and you're going to get 2 and a half. Now you can choose which method. So remember, this is method number 2. I'm going to put a big 2 here. And then the other one that we had was number 1. Okay, so the one that we did in the beginning here was method number 1. Now you can choose which method you prefer. You're either going to choose one where you're going to be minusing the whole numbers first, changing into lowest common denominator, and continuing like that. Or you're going to be doing the second method, which is the one where we convert it to improper. Okay, and then obviously you don't have to do any borrowing. The only thing with method number 2 is sometimes the numbers do become quite large. So as long as you are comfortable with that, then it's fine. Okay, so depending on what you want, that's going to be the one that, depending on which method you want, it's your decision. Okay, No one is forcing you to use one or the other. Unfortunately, you have to pick one of them, okay, because we obviously have to do the sums at the end of the day. All right, so that is it for the two methods. Let's go on to the actual exercise. Now, I've highlighted the two that are subtraction only. You'll see I've put a star next to F and J. F and J are just the extras that I want to do with you quickly, because you'll just see that it's got an addition and a minus, so it's a plus and a minus. And this one's got a plus and then obviously a bracket. So I just want to show you how to work these two out. But don't stress, we're going to do D and E first, and then we'll come to F and J. All right, so let's do D first. I'm just going to lift it up a bit so you can see what I'm doing. Okay, and we're going to start with D. And D is 8 and 3 over 10 minus 2 and 1 over 6. Okay, and I'm going to do method number 1 on the left-hand side, and I'm going to do method number 2 on the right-hand side, because I want you to see the difference between the two of them. Okay, so we're going to do 8 minus 2 is 6. Okay, whole numbers first, and then keep what's left over there. Okay, so we keep the fractions. All right, now we're going to change it to lowest common denominator. And now, if you can't see what 10 and 6 is, you're more than welcome to obviously use your page at the bottom or somewhere and just write down your your multiples of each of them. You don't have to do this method. I mean, this is just a method that I show kids so that they are aware of different ways of working out the lowest common denominator. But if you know this in your head and you know all your multiplication tables really, really well, then that's going to help you as well. So I've written the 6 times table and the 10 times table, not the whole way, just as many as I feel. But I can see that there's a common 30 over here. Okay, and that is my lowest common denominator. And a lot of children have been asking me, do you always have to use the lowest one? And it's not about having to, you have to use the lowest one. You can use a bigger one. The problem with that is that you're going to end up with much bigger numbers, okay? And that's where the concern is. So rather try and stick to the lowest common denominator, because then you're going to work with more manageable numbers that you can actually work with. Okay, so we're going to use 30 as our common denominator. And all I did there was times by 3 top and bottom, and I times by 5 top and bottom for the second fraction. So 3 times 3 is 9, 1 times 5 is 5. And like I always say, if you can see that this number is smaller than that one, then you don't need to do any borrowing. You can do a little happy dance because you don't have to borrow, and you're left with 6 and 4 over 30. Okay, so that's a nice one because there's no borrowing involved. Okay, happy days. Okay, but at the same time, this final answer is not final yet. Okay, we can divide by 2, top and bottom. So always try and see if you can make it smaller. Okay, and by making it smaller, you've got to do whatever you do to the top, you have to do to the bottom, and you're left with 6 and 2 over 15. Okay, all right, next one. So that is D, and this was method number 1. Okay, so let's just write that so you can remember which one is which. Okay, and we're going to do exactly the same. I think I'm actually just going to, okay, let me just write this. I'm going to use a different color just so that you can get a feel for it. Okay, and we're going to make these improper. So this is going to be method 2. Let's just write method 2 here. Okay, method 2. And now what we're going to do is we are going to change them into improper. So I know I've got 8 lots of 10. So 10 times 8 is 80, plus 3 is 83. Keep the denominator. And we've got 6 times 2 is 12, plus 1 is 13 over 6. Okay, so now what we've got is we've got these two big numbers, and there's nothing we can do with it. We can't minus it yet, because they have to be the same denominator. Now, we have previously said that we're going to use 30 as our lowest common denominator. Okay, and that is the best one to use because you already got a small number. Okay, And we are going to see how did we get to 30. 10 times 3 was 30, so we have to do top and bottom. We times by 5 for 6, so we have to times the top by 5 as well. Okay, now you've got to do, and I want you to notice with this method number 2, do you notice that you've got quite big numbers that you are multiplying? You know, in the first one we had 3 times 3. Here you've got 83 times 3. Here you had 1 times 5. Here you've got 13 times 5. And the only reason your numbers are different is because obviously this one is using improper. So it is going to be bigger number. You're going to be using bigger numbers on top. Okay, but anyway, so let's just do this method and I want you to see it as we go. Now, if you can't do 83 times 3 in your head, okay, this is where I always tell you guys to go and work it out at the bottom or somewhere else. Okay, so you're doing 83 times 3 and you can just do a quick one. 3 times 3 is 9. 3 times 8 is 24. So your answer is 249. Okay, and now you've got 13 times 5. 13 times 5 is 60. Why? Because 12 times 5 is 60. Obviously 13, I'm going to add one more lot of 5 and it's going to be 65. But again, if you can't do that in your head, okay, don't feel ashamed. Do a little sum on the side, okay? That's why you've got paper. That's why you've got pencils. That's why we've got an eraser. If we make a mistake, we can erase it, okay? So please, guys, just let it work for you, okay? You want to get the answers right. So let's make sure that we're getting the right numbers, because if you don't have the right numbers, we're not going to get it right. And if you have to do a little sum at the bottom, then by all means do the sum. Okay, so now we've got over 30 and over 30. They are the same denominators, which means I can minus them. Okay, so I'm going to do the 249 minus 65 on another piece of paper, just because I don't have much space here. So we've got 249 minus 65. 9 minus 5 is 4. 4 minus 6 I can't do, so I'm going to borrow from the 2. 14 minus 6 is 8. 1 minus 0 is 1. And I'm left with 184 over 30. Okay, so that does look a little bit hair-raising with that 184 over 30. Because now, you know, we don't really know our 30 times table like that well. But you know what I do know? I do know my 3 times table. And when I write out my 3 times, I'm just going to write it over here. 3, so we're going to 3, 6, 9, 12. I'm going to just go over here, 15 and 18 and 21. Now, I'm not doing my 3 times table. I should be doing my 30 times table. So we're going to put a 0 for each of them. And then my 30 times table becomes quite easy. It's 30, 60, 90, 120, 150, 180, and 210. So that makes life a little bit easier because I know that I've got the 3 and I just add a 0 onto it. Now I can see that 30 goes into 184. How many times? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 times. Okay, 6 times because I can get to 180. How much is left over? My 4 over 30. Okay, and you'll see I got to the same answer there. But now obviously we need to simplify. And we're going to get 6 and 2 over 15. And that is how you do method number 2. Okay, for D. So again, like I said, you can choose which method works better for you. Okay, it doesn't matter. You're not going to get marked down for doing either one. I mean, if you want to do method 1, then do method 1. If you want to do method 2, well, then do method 2. The point is you want to get to the correct answer. So you want to use a method that you can get to the correct answer with. So if you're not good at changing it to improper fraction, then I wouldn't suggest doing method 2. Okay, that is just a personal opinion, but that is also because we know if you can't do the improper fractions, this is going to make it very difficult for you because you have to convert the whole thing into improper, and then you get to the end and you still got an improper. Now you're going to still convert it back to a mixed number. Then it becomes an issue. So again, like I say, look at what you're good at. Look at which one you prefer, which one seems easier for you, which one is the one that you're probably going to get the better marks with, and you can make that decision. Okay. All right, let's just do E quickly. And E is 13 and 5 over 12. Oops, let's just put it down for you. And we've got 13 and 5 over 12 minus 5 and 2 over 3. Okay, so I'm only going to do the one method at this point. I think it's better just as we're going to run out of time. But we're going to do method number 1 because most of the children prefer method number 1. Okay, so 13 minus 5 is 8. Okay, to my equal signs. And like I said, I always leave my numbers alone on the side there. So just leave my fractions, don't leave them out. Okay, and then you've got 8. And we need to change these to the same denominator. So remember here we did the whole numbers. Okay, whole numbers first. And now we're doing LCD. And I'm going to change both of them to 12 because I know 3 can go into 12. So there's no point in making it any bigger if you've already got a lowest common denominator there. So we're going to keep the 5 and I times by 4 top and bottom. So that's going to be an 8. And now we can see we actually need to borrow. Okay, so we are going to try and borrow from the 8. So that's going to make it 7. And we're going to add 1 to the 5 over 12. Now, I know that some schools and some teachers have taught the kids to go immediately and put it straight into the fraction, which means that you'd add 12 straight to the fraction at the top here, because obviously the denominator is 12, you're going to add 12 to the top. It's up to you how you do it. I'm doing this method because I want to show you where that 1 has gone to, and that it is still the same 8 that we're working with. Okay, so mine's a little bit of a longer method, but it does work in the end, and it works out pretty much exactly the same as that other method, and you'll see now. Okay, so we've taken the 1 from the 8, and we've given it to the 5 over 12, so that's still 8, and it's still 5 over 12 minus 8 over 12. And now, this is right here that we've borrowed. And now we've got 7, 12 times 1 is 12, plus 5 is 17 over 12. Can you see all we did was we added 12 to it because a whole number, so just one of them, you're just going to add the denominator and you're going to get 17 over 12 minus 8 over 12. And we're going to land up with, sorry, you just need to move up a bit, and we're going to have 7 and 9 over 12. Divide top and bottom by 3 to simplify it, and you're going to get 7 and 3 over 4. Okay, so that is how you are going to do that question. That was question E. So let me just write E here. Okay, so that is question E. We did it in method 1. Okay, and you've got your whole numbers. We then changed to lowest common denominator. We borrowed from the 8 and made it 7 and gave 1 to the 5 over 12. We worked out, obviously, into improper, like that. Okay, and then we subtracted and we simplified and we got an answer of 7 3/4. Okay, so I'd like you to try this example at home. Try to do it by yourself, and then if need be, so you can even pause the video and or even like rewind it, get to the sum, and then pause it, do it yourself, and then obviously start to play it again and see if you've got the same answer. And if you've got a different answer, say you went wrong somewhere, maybe you times by, I don't know, maybe you times by 3 by mistake, or, you know, sometimes we make silly mistakes, we all do. And then you can actually see where you're going wrong. So do step by step and see, okay, what did I do wrong? Did I add wrong? Did I multiply? Because sometimes, you know, sometimes we're also silly. Sometimes we'll write a plus instead of a minus, and then our whole sum's wrong. Even our working out is beautiful, okay, in terms of fractions, but we've added instead of subtracted. And I can tell you now, every single person has probably done that once in their life. So if you've done it, you are not alone. Okay, so now I want to show you F quickly, and I want to do, the reason I want to do these ones is I want to show you how slow you can do them, okay, or how you should do them. You don't have to go too slowly, but I want you to just take your time, because if you rush fractions, we are bound to make a mistake somewhere, and I think that goes for everything really. Okay, so I just want to move this up a little bit. Okay, so we do make mistakes, okay, but that's normally when we're rushing something and we don't, you know, we don't have time and we want to try and finish it as quickly as possible and we make mistakes. So check that you've got the same numbers. 3 1/4 plus 2 1/6 minus 2 3/8. That's your first point of doing your math, is to make sure everything is correct. Okay, and now what we're going to do is we are going to work this out. Now you're going to notice that there's a plus and there's a minus. Okay, now I'm sure you remember something called BODMAS. Okay, and BODMAS is how you work out your sums, and it's how you order it. So you might have to do something first before something else. Now we know the B is for brackets, O is for of or other, so sometimes it's also exponents. Your division and your multiplication, whichever one comes first, left to right, and the same applies to the A and the S for addition and subtraction. Whichever one comes first, left or right, that's the one we do. So in this case, you can see that the addition comes first, so we're going to do this part first, and then we will subtract that side. Okay, so I just want you to keep that in mind with the BODMAS. Okay, so let's just go for it. So before we do anything, let's change all of the fractions to, what's it called? To lowest common denominators. So we're going to keep all of them the same. I don't want to add or anything yet with the fraction, well, with the whole numbers yet, and I'll tell you why now. I just want to get the fractions right first. Okay, so we've got 3 and something over something, 2 and 2, because we've got the 8, we've got the 6 and the 4. Okay, now we don't know which number goes into which, and I'm going to do my little method. Like I say, some of you probably already know the answer already, and that's wonderful, so well done. But for some people, they might still be struggling to find what the common denominator is. And so let's just try and play around with this. And we've got 8, 16, 24. Can you see that 24 is my lowest common denominator? Okay, and so we're going to put them all over 24. Okay, you can do this part now, or you can do it later on, or you can separate it. It doesn't matter. I'm just doing it now this way because I have had some kids ask me about this method, so I'm doing this method for you. Okay, so let's see what we had to do to get them over 24. We had to times by 6. Okay, we have to times by 4. And we have to times by 3. Okay, and what we're going to do now is we're going to times out the top. So we're going to see what's happening on all the numerators. 1 times 6 is 6. 1 times 4 is 4. 3 times 3 is 9. And we've got 6 over 24, 4 over 24, and 3 over 24. Okay, so 6 over 24, and sorry, 9 over 24. I'm looking at the top number, sorry. Okay, and now what we're going to do is we're going to work with this one first. Because remember I said with BODMAS we need to work with the addition first. So let's just work with this side first before we even touch that one. Okay, so we're going to do 3 and 2 is 5, and 6 and 4 is 10 over 24. Okay, so we've got 5 and 10 over 24. Now we can put this little dude back in. Okay, he can come back in, and now we're going to work out the rest. So we did the little one with the adding, and now we're going to put the minus 2 and 9 over 24 at the bottom. Okay, so we're going to do 5 minus 2 is 3, and 10 minus 9 is 1 over 24, and that is your final answer for F. Okay, let's do J quickly, and J is 8 and 3 over 10 plus 2, 5 over 6 minus 1 and 4 over 5, and that is all in a bracket. Okay, and again, just check that your numbers are correct before you even start. That's probably your best thing to do at this point, is to make sure you got the correct numbers, because that's going to guarantee that you're working with the right numbers to get the right answer at the end. Okay, now we're going to do the same thing. So let's change all of them to the same denominator while we add it. So I'm going to do my little thing again. You know, I'm in pain, but I love doing it like this because I think it just shows you what your lowest common denominator is. And again, you don't have to do it this way, but I just think it's quite a cool little way of doing it. And we've got 30, 30, and 30. So we're going to put all of them over 30. Okay, so everything's going to be over 30. And now let's see what happened, or what we have to do to all these fractions to make them over 30. So here we have to times by 3, top and bottom, times by 5. I sound like a broken record. Okay, times by 6. Because whatever we do to the top, we have to do to the bottom. Okay, 3 times 3 is 9. 5 times 5 is 25. 4 times 6 is 24. Okay, so what we're left with is 8 and 9 over 30 plus bracket 2 and 25 over 30 minus 1 and 24 over 30. Now, if you remember correctly, we need to do BODMAS. So BODMAS says we have to use brackets first. So because we're doing this first, we need to write out what is here. And then we can write down our answer. So even if you know what your answer is here, we are going to put the answer in first, but you still have to write whatever's before it. Okay, you can't just leave that poor thing out. So we're going to keep the 8 and 9 over 30, and we're still going to add what's in the bracket. And in the bracket is our answer. 2 minus 1 is 1. 25 minus 24 is 1 over 30. Okay, and now we can do our final answer. This is the fun part. Okay, we're going to do 8 and 1 is 9. 9 and 1 is 10 over 30. Okay, and from there we can also see we need to simplify top and bottom, divide by 10, and you got 9 and 1 over 3. Okay, so I didn't realize you couldn't see that one. Sorry about that. Okay, so your answer is 9 and 1/3. Now, a couple of things just to remember. You can choose which method you want to do. Okay, you don't have to do method 1. You can do method 2. Or if you really don't want to do method 2, you can do method 1. Okay, it is up to you. A couple of things just as well to remember. Write down your numbers correctly. Check that you've got the correct signs. Check that you have multiplied properly top and bottom. And just do those little things, and those little checks will come naturally if you work slowly. Because if you work fast, sometimes our brains work much faster than our hands, or our hand works faster than our brain sometimes, and we write the wrong number because we're not slowing down and working too quickly. Okay, so slow it down, write your numbers correctly, put the correct signs in it or the operations in, and you shall be okay. You will be good at this. But this does mean you have to still practice. You know, you must, maths is a practice subject. It's not a subject that you just learn off by heart and you're done. Okay, it's all about practice and revising and revising and revising, and in particular your fractions. Fractions are incredibly important for grade 7, but even more so for high school. So we need to get these right so that by the time you get to high school, that you are going to be confident and you know that you can do it. And I can promise you now, when you get that confidence, you are going to fly. Okay, so I really hope this has helped you. If you need anything or you want to ask any questions, you can either leave a comment or contact me on my website. My email address is there, and you are more than welcome to contact me for any explanations or any kind of help that you need. Okay, all right, have a good day.